Hi, I'm Roger Sadowsky from Sadowsky Guitars, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about wood and sound in solid body instruments. Now, you can find a lot of videos on YouTube where people are trying to prove that the wood does not affect the sound of a solid body guitar or bass. I'm here to share with you my 52 years of experience and tell you that I feel very strongly that the wood does affect the sound of an electric bass. I started building acoustic guitars in 1972. When I started doing a lot of modification work and upgrading work, primarily on Fender basses in the late 70s and early 80s, I noticed that I would do the same work to various instruments, retrue a fingerboard, a refret, shield the electronics, whatever. And some instruments sounded better than others when I was done. And I couldn't figure out why there was a difference. And by 1982, I had become convinced that the instruments that sounded the best were the ones that were lighter in weight and sounded the best acoustically. I also began to realize that the fingerboard seemed to be making a bigger difference in the sound of the instrument than the bodywood did. I've always primarily built with alder bodies or swamp ash bodies, and primarily with maple fingerboards and rosewood fingerboards. Historically, early 60s Fenders were mostly alder with rosewood boards, and 70s Fenders were primarily ash bodies with maple boards. And over time, I really have become convinced that I can hear the difference of the fingerboard much more than I can the bodywood. So, for example, a maple fingerboard is the brightest of the fingerboards. And so if you wanted to get that Marcus Miller slap funk sound, I would absolutely recommend a maple fingerboard. Rosewood boards are a little sweeter and warmer sounding. Now, that doesn't mean you can't slap and do funk on a rosewood board. Just look at Verdian White from Earth, Wind & Fire. He plays a PJ and with a rosewood board and alder body, and he still gets a great funk sound. So, of course, a lot of the tone is in the player's hands. Another incident I can strongly remember is I had built a bass for a top New York session player, and I had a maple fingerboard, and he was complaining he was getting too much clacking noise off of the frets. And so for an experiment, and I followed my gut, I put a neck on that had a rosewood board, and it solved that clacking problem for him. So again, I'm very much convinced maple boards are brighter and tighter, rosewood boards are sweeter and warmer, and that difference is greater than anything I can hear between an alder body and a swamp ash body. Ebony, which we don't use as much, but we still use ebony. Ebony has the most immediate response. It's very immediate, and the fundamental is stronger. And whereas rosewood and maple boards, after you pluck the string, the note wants to bloom, and it gets a little fuller sounding in the second after you attack the string. An ebony board is boom, it's right there. I think ebony goes very well with bodywoods like okume, which we use as a mahogany substitute, primarily because it's very light in weight compared to mahogany, and it has a very similar tone. All I can do is share my 52 years of what I call empirical evidence of making thousands of basses, is that a maple fingerboard is the brightest and tightest, rosewoods are sweeter and warmer, and ebonies are the tightest and punchiest. It really doesn't matter, in my opinion, what the listener hears. What's important is what the player hears. And what the player hears affects how he attacks his instrument, his touch, his feel. The most important thing is these are differences the player can hear on his own instrument, and it totally affects how he plays his bass. That's it. If you'd like to listen for yourself, we have many videos on our YouTube channel demonstrating all of our different models, and listen for yourself. But I think you can hear that a maple fingerboard definitely is a brighter, tighter sound than a rosewood fingerboard. Again, trust your own ears and go with whatever you hear in your head and what you think will give you the sound that you want.